Hey guys, do you recognize this? This is my Ahmadinejad did threaten and act towards Israel's destruction video. Now I made this video on the 7th of June 2007. Basically I lay out a case why Ahmadinejad did and is calling and acting towards the destruction of Israel. Most people found this to be obvious in the first place, and they thought it was quite clear that it's a clear-cut case, but I've had a lot of people complaining and telling me I'm wrong, and I'm this, and I'm that, being called a warmonger for this. It's ridiculous. Basically, their case comes down to this every single time. First of all, he was quoting Imam Khomeini, so it was not even his own words, even though he was saying as the Imam said, meaning I agree with it. And then he says the regime occupying Jerusalem should vanish from the pages of time. Now this quote is from Juan Cole. I go over this in my video. The people who leave me comments about it clearly have no common sense. I don't mean to be rude to their intelligence, but I do cover this point, and I do expand far beyond this point in my original video. And it's just amazing that they've person after person after person have made the same case over and over and over. I mean, I find it over and over. There you go, another here. Zionist, blah blah blah. So in either case, I thought it's about time I follow this up. So, Syria, as we all know, is quite probably Iran's closest ally. May well be Iran's closest ally, for certainly in the region. They've been very close because they were both considered on the axis of evil, even though it wasn't really. It was originally not including Syria, but Syria has become one of the public enemies #1 because of their interference in Lebanon. So Syria and Iran have been very close recently. So the Syrian government is very close to the Iranian government. This is well known. There's a lot of bilateral discussions. And in any case, Syrian officials wouldn't be understanding their knowledge of what is happening in Iran through Western sources. They wouldn't be reading it off the New York Times, would they? They'd be reading it off in Arabic from their own government ministers, from their own government workers, from their own intelligence services, and from their many meetings with Iranian officials. So they would have a very, very clear idea of what is going on. Which brings me to my point. Basically, over here we have Syria's deputy foreign minister. Okay, so a very high up official. And in Syria, to be deputy foreign minister, you need to have been in the circuit of the political sphere for probably decades. I don't know his history, but he wouldn't have been some new guy. Let's put it that way. So he would be very well acquainted with the Iranians and what is going on in the situation. And I'd like to point something out he said. As I said, he wouldn't be getting his information from the New York Times. He has plenty of very direct, very intimate sources related to Iran and Iranians themselves, Iranian officials, government officials, to get his information from. Let us read. Syria has responded by dispatching its foreign minister to Tehran to sign a mutual defense treaty with Iran. This is shortly after the news came out that Syria is dealing with Israel, signaling that it is not prepared to end its friendship with a country that repeatedly called for the destruction of Israel. And here he says, Syria, this is the deputy foreign minister of Syria. Syria has reminded Hamas and Hezbollah that we are not like Iran. Iran believes in the destruction of Israel, while Syria believes in negotiating with Israel. There is no word regime there. There is no word Israeli government there. Destruction of Israel. For the Syrian deputy foreign minister, who's very well acquainted with Iranian government officials, it's obviously second nature to say this. because it's clear, it's obvious. So I think this is really a big nail in the coffin for all those who made that Juan Cole argument over and over, repeating it like parrots. Because really it has been parroted consistently. If you just search it on YouTube, you'll find dozens of videos saying the same thing. If you search it on the web, you'll see hundreds of websites saying the same thing. And they just ignore all the other evidence, just throw it out the window. We have a US professor. We don't need facts. We don't need to review this. We don't need to see how other professors, including in Iran, translated it. We don't need to see Iranian government media and how they wrote their own president's speech in English. We don't need these things. We have Juan Cole. And so now they have Syria, who's Iran's closest ally, pretty much. If not definitely, then at the top, towards the top, saying the same thing. So I think that's that. Just on a side note, the UN envoy, Tarje Larson, said Israel has given Syria a huge gift for free. He said he condemned Israel for doing this. He harshly criticized Israel for indirect negotiations with Syria. He said Israel's just throwing things for peace and they're not getting anything in return. This is what he said. Now, there. In a classified telegram to the foreign ministry in Jerusalem, Israel's UN delegation wrote that Larson had complained that Syria is receiving legitimacy for free. This is covering up for their crimes in Lebanon and covering up for their continued involvement in creating problems and conflict within that nation. So, if you look back, Larson was nearly declared persona non grata in Israel a few years ago. So it's not because he's a friend of Israel, because he was almost thrown out. He was almost thrown out with his bags in his face. So I just thought that would be relevant because it again shows that it is Israel that is seeking peace, and it's giving away things for free. And by things, what he means is Israel's cards, because obviously each country has strengths and weaknesses in their negotiations. And he said we're just dropping our cards. Israel's just dropping it in there. And I just thought that's interesting. Obviously, I'm quite skeptical of all these negotiations, because Syria became very interested in negotiations as more pressure piled on it in relation to Lebanon. But that's a different case. We'll see what happens. In any case, Syrian deputy foreign minister clearly believes Iran wants to destroy Israel. And outside of Iran, it's probably the Syrians that know them best. And inside Iran, they say more or less the same things anyway. So for you Juan Cole translators out there, for you Juan Cole parrots, I suggest you rest your case, because your case is gone.